Shabbat shalom to everybody. So I was just on a small vacation for the first few weeks of August, and while most of what I did during that time was move apartments, I am now a Manhattan dweller. I miss Brooklyn, but I'm happy to be a Manhattan. However, during that time, I also took some time to go see my very first performance at the David Geffen Hall at Lincoln Center. And it was totally thrilling and gorgeous. We saw Karen Kamensk conduct a truly beautiful program. And I'm just going to preface, I'm about to tell you a little bit about the program, but as I just said, it was my very first time at David Geffen Hall. So if I say some of the words wrong, you'll forgive me, right? Okay. So, we saw her conduct a beautiful program called From Paris to Patagonia, and one of the more innovative pieces were 3 songs put together by Osvaldo Golajov, who is an Argentinian composer, with 3 different songs and poems woven together in the larger piece. And the first was a Yiddish lullaby. The second was a Spanish poem from the region of Galicia, and the last piece were poems by the American poet Emily Dickinson. So pretty interesting. But what I was most struck by was how different in tone the Galician poem and the Yiddish lullaby were. The Spanish poem was all about darkness and passion and this life and surrendering to death and despair, while the Yiddish lullaby, which was called The Night of the Flying Horses, was about hope and dreaming and longing for a different world. So I just want to read you a little bit of the Yiddish lullaby. It goes like this. Close your eyes and you will go to that sweet land all dreamers know, where milk and honey always flow and mama watches over you. Spread your wings, my Fagala, my darling girl, my singing bird. The land of dreams must let you go. Your own sweet home is here, you know. So it's gorgeous, right? I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful, and it feels like it encapsulates so much about Judaism in those small stanzas. You will go to that sweet land all dreamers know. And we all know instantly what land the singer is talking about, because it is part of our bones, the land of milk and honey, our sweet homeland in the world of dreams. For so long in Jewish history, for millennia, the land of milk and honey was a dream. It was the physical Holy Land, yes, but more than that, it was a land of escape. A place we could visit in our longings for a better life, in our points of despair when there was nowhere else to turn. We could always carry the vision of a land flowing with milk and honey, a land where we could all spread our wings and be free. Judaism for so many years was about holding the vision of that mystical spiritual place in our hearts and not giving in to the darkness and despair that could overtake us, but instead getting to visit the sweetness of the promise of a better future in our dreams. And it feels like, at its core, that is a deep part of what makes Judaism, Judaism, our longing and our hope. This week's Parsha reflects the other side of that reality. We're in Parsha Re'eh, and this is the Israelites before they've taken possession of the land of Israel. So in some ways, it's the other side of the coin. I was talking about before a time post-Jews being in the land of Israel, but then not having it. And here in the Torah, they're about to go in. And they too have been dreaming of this land flowing with milk and honey for years, imagining what it would be like to actually step foot in the land of abundance, in the land of permanence, when they have only known desert and transience up until this point. However, this parsha is about what will happen when the Israelites enter the land, and the instruction that they get is to lay waste to all the other nations that are there. So you can understand that when I read through this parsha, it's pretty uncomfortable. And from both of these texts, the lullaby and the Torah, the question arises, what do you do when you've been longing for something for so long and then you finally receive it? You finally get what you are hoping for. Because there is a very big difference between longing and dreaming for your desire and then actually holding it in your hands or actually stepping foot inside of it. In one version, it's entirely full of promise and idealism. And in another version, it's the messy reality of the world we actually live in. And this feels particularly true about the land of Israel right now, the land of milk and honey, both from the time of the Torah, pre-First Temple and Second Temple, and the time of now, when we do have possession of the land. And the question is, what do we do now that we have it? It's much easier to dream. It is not so easy once you have the power and authority to make those dreams a reality. And I think right now, we're living through the uncomfortable truth of this question in particular. So I'm going to come back to that, but first I want to dive into the Torah just a little bit. So in Re'eh, God is giving instructions about what it will look like for the Israelites to be the true owners of the land of Israel. And it is a lot about the rules Bnei Israel will have to follow once they're there, and the sacrifices that they will be required to offer. God is going to choose a holy space where sacrifices will be made, and God will set up whatever version of the Mishkan that exists in the desert. God will set it up in Israel, the holiest place. And we know that this idea of a place of God's choosing ultimately becomes the temple, and then the second temple when the first temple was destroyed. But right now in Devarim, it's just an idea. The instruction is very clear. Only in the place that God will choose is where you can sacrifice your burnt offerings, the animals that are meant to be a gift to God only. And it says specifically, you may not partake in your settlements of the tithes of your new grain or your wine or your oil or the firstlings of your herds and flocks or any of the offerings that you vow or your free will offerings or your contributions. These are meant to be consumed only before God in this future holy site. And then the Torah says something that at least I find very interesting. It says, Ki yarchik mimcha hamakom. If the place where God has chosen to establish God's name is too far from you, you may slaughter any of the cattle or the sheep that the Lord gives you, as I've instructed you, and you may eat to your heart's content in your settlements. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not personally really interested in what this means halachically at all, which is mostly where the rabbinic commentators take it. It leads to a big discussion about kosher slaughtering, which if that's your thing, amazing. I'm very happy for you, but not for me personally. But I am interested in what it means spiritually for the Jewish people. If the place God has chosen feels too far from you, what can you do? Ki yarchik mimcha makom. If the place feels too far. In the context of Re'eh, it's referring to it being physically too far, which is nice in its own way. The Torah is thinking about accessibility and access. But now that we no longer have the temple, I am wondering about how to think about it more abstractly. What do you do if the distance between where you are now and where you would like to be feels too great? To make it more real, what do you do if you've been longing, and I'm just going to take a few examples. What do you do if you've been longing for a relationship and you get it, and guess what? It's suddenly not the most easy experience in the world. It actually takes hard work and conversations and muddling through the reality of what it's like to really get to know another human being. Or you could say it about anything, right? You've been longing for a new job, and then you get it, and it's not like all of a sudden all your problems are solved. You still have to do hard work. You still have to prove yourself again and again. You've been longing for a new apartment, and you move, and none of your furniture fits the same way, and you have to get used to all new streets and places, and you have to reconfigure everything you've had into someplace new, which I'm not speaking from experience or anything, but I'm just saying. Anyways, you get the idea. There is a gap between what you imagined and hoped for and the reality of actually being there. What do you do if/when, as the Torah says, the place feels too far from you? I think we can mostly all agree that right now there is a big distance between what we hope and long for the land of Israel to be, a land of abundance and safety, which it is in many ways, but also where the land of Israel is. It's also the place where the Israeli government and the Israeli army are starving people in Gaza, and children and families are needlessly dying, and there are still so many hostages that have not returned home, and their families have to live in the crushing reality of hopelessness every single day. This is not the land flowing with milk and honey that we have dreamed of for millennia. So how do we square these feelings when the place feels so far from what we dreamed it to be. Ki yarchik hamamkom mimcha, the place is too far from you. The Sfat Emet, who is a Hasidic commentator from 1800s in Poland, says this verse in the Torah is about longing. If the place is too far from you refers to the distance between wanting to attach yourself to God, to Adonai, and the physical reality of the world we live in, where there are so many distractions from being able to do so. And this, in many ways, feels like the perfect Torah for the place that we're in the Jewish calendar and the world. In the Jewish calendar, we're just about to enter into the month of Elul, tomorrow night, the month of deep contemplation before the high holidays. We enter into the month of Elul from the month of Av, the month of brokenness and despair. We are about to start singing Psalm 27 every single service. Psalm 27, which is the epitome of the prayer of longing. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai, if I could ask God only one thing, the psalmist says, let me sit in God's house all the days of my life. Let me attach myself to God and forget everything else that is around me. But of course, we know that request is always fraught. We live in the material world. As the Sfat Emet says, there will always be everyday things that will come between us and getting to sit in God's house without anything else weighing on our minds. So what is the remedy? How do we square our yearning and our reality? The Sfat Emet says the remedy is the longing itself. Even in all your deeds, he says, let this longing be engraved in your heart. In other words, don't forget the dream and the sweetness of imagining that something better will still come, that the holiest of holy lands is still possible. Continue to hold on to that hope and don't abandon it, because that is the only way that we will be able to make the distance between the dream world and reality even a little bit closer. I want to return to the final line of the Yiddish lullaby, The Night of the Flying Horses. It says, the land of dreams must let you go. Your own sweet home is here, you know. We will always live in this world's reality, with all its money and power hungriness and all the evil that comes along with it. But it's also our own sweet home, and we have the power to make it a little bit more like a land dripping with milk and honey, if we all at least try to dream it together. Shabbat Shalom.